Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Live with Love. Here we create a safe space so that we can love the way you are loving you. Today's topic will be on the inner child. What a great topic to start with today, this week, going into this weekend. It's heavy, can be heavy. Here we go.
Black girl magic, the face of a model, body like a bottle. Is that black girl magic? Black girl, hold on. Black girl magic. Black girl magic, the face of a model, body like a bottle. Is that black girl magic? Black girl, hold on. Black girl magic. Black girl magic, the face of a model, body like a bottle. Is that black girl magic? Black girl, hold on. Black girl magic.
Hello, welcome to Live with Love. Here we create a safe space so that we can love the way you are loving you. Today's topic will be on the inner child. But before we get started, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Please drop in the comments where you are tuning in from today. I'm super excited today. We have a guest. She is my friend. She is like my accountability partner. We have done a lot of this work together, like my last 3 topics. Within like the last 2 years, we just been in it together. And I'm super excited to have her on today so she can share her tips and tricks on how she healed her inner child. We can converse. You guys can see how it is to have accountability partner, somebody that you can trust, somebody that you can just be super vulnerable with. Here we go.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Friend Diana, she is here with me today. Hello, Miss Diana. Please give us a brief introduction.
Hi everyone. I'm Diana. I am what I would consider myself to be on a healing journey, which is, it's not a destination, it's a journey. Currently, I am really engaging in the youth world. I do anything from allowing young folks and youth to be really vulnerable with me about their circumstances and their situations. So I work really probably the greatest population that I work with right now is homeless youth who are experiencing homelessness. With some I work for a school also, so I help in the classroom, and I also do some sex trafficking type work where I help connect young folks to resources to get themselves out of there. So thank you so much for having me, Pasha. And yes, we are each other's accountability partner, and we are each other's healing partners. We've been in this work for a really long time. We both come with our own separate expertise and skills, and that really, really works well with each other. We try really hard to bring a lot of our work to the community, and this is a way in which we do it.
Yes,
Thank you,
I'm
Pasha, for having me.
excited. Yes, thank you so much for being here. So excited to share my community with you and vice versa. I'm super excited. So let's get started. Inner child. So the inner child is basically right here, what you see on the screen. It is that little person inside your body. It is our subconscious part of us that has stored a lot of emotions and feelings and things like that from the ages of 5 to 9 years old. So healing and reparenting that inner child is going to be super important. The way how you show up today, right? So and it's going to allow like that inner child to be heard and to be seen when nobody else was listening and watching this inner child. I see the inner child showing up in a lot of adults. I can see it when they speak to me. I can see it through their actions, and I can see it through their career paths. So I think it's safe to say that as an adult, we are living life through the lens of our inner child. Would you agree, Diana?
Oh, for sure. And I also think that, there's so much literature around with the idea around when does the inner child become a part of, who you are. And I've had literature that says that the inner child starts as early as like being in your mom's stomach. Because that's kind of how, trauma is passed down. So some of us are born with trauma that we probably don't even recognize until we start to really dig deep.
Yep. Yep. That is very true. That is so true. Yep. So, shout out to Carl Jung. He is a psychologist that that taught us these terms, the shadow work, like we talked about last week, the inner child work. So I highly encourage everybody to look into Carl Jung if you want to like a deeper psychologist standpoint on these topics, on these terms, right? Because for me, I think it's important for me to plant the seed, and I think it's going to be important for you to water it. Like you have to be able to research the information that I give out so that you can flourish, so that you can grow. I have tried numerous times to heal people, and it just don't work by myself. You guys got to do the work. So I highly encourage to dig a little deeper, do some research, and don't forget about Carl Jung. Thank you, Carl Jung, for all that you brought forward to us so that we can learn this stuff. So he did come up with these the 7 Jungian inner child archetypes. Types. Sorry,
Mhm.
Diana. What do you think about that orphan one?
I think that when it comes to any of those, I think the most critical ones is probably the magical child, the orphan child, and the wounded child. I think that those are probably some of the most significant ones, is because that's where you start to dig deep on why your behaviors are negatively affecting who you are. The magical child is the child that everybody knows to be smart and brilliant and creative and all these like wonderful things, but deep down inside, they're struggling with who they are because something has happened to them. So even though they're creative, even though they're highly, highly brilliant, they often come off as very loners. And that's usually around because typically something has happened to them, um, whether it's physical, sexual, mental abuse, all those things is very crucial to the development of a child. And that child will kind of fall through the cracks because most people would think that child is so well off because of the way that they show up mentally and not necessarily behaviorally or emotionally or physically. The orphan child and the wounded child, I like to consider both of them, is really around like the neglect, the sexual trauma, the abuse, whether it's physical, mental, however it shows up in your world. It really, really, truly affects, and it makes you like angry. It makes you very isolated. It involves like deep rooted trauma that usually like breaks it down. And if you have some time, I would for sure dig deeper into the orphan, the wounded, and the magical child, because if you have a lot of childhood trauma, you're probably falling into one of those 3 categories. And for people who just like if you lost a parent very young in age, you might be some of those divine or needy kids where something just was missed, and that's what created the trauma in you. But most of likely the magical and the orphan and the wounded child is someone with significant amount of trauma.
Yes, yes. So again, we all have trauma, right? So
Mhm.
don't ever think that you are doing this work alone or it's really heavy. We've all been there. We all started at some point, like
Mhm.
Diana said, this journey, your healing journey, it never ends. There is no final destination. It's going to continue to go. So sometimes when you try to figure out or integrate or meet your inner child, you may you want to know what that kind of looks like and how it shows up in your life. So sometimes you may be overreactive. That a lot of anger showing up in day-to-day times or life situations. Attachment issues will show you where your inner child is or where it needs some help. Difficulties in relationships. So address or sit back and assess all of your relationships, whether it's romantic, family, friends, all that good stuff. And if you're struggling with in those kind of relationships, then that's probably some inner child, that your inner child has been wounded and they need some assistance. Also addictions. That shows up in the inner child too. What are you masking? What are you covering up? Why do you always have to be drinking? Why do you always have to be high, smoking? Whatever the addiction is, it could be food, any addiction.
It could be sex.
Yep, sex. That's a big
It's
one.
usually
As a matter of
sex.
fact.
It's
Yes.
like probably the biggest one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially if there was some sexual trauma going on there, definitely peaks out.
Mhm.
So those are just some signs and things that you can look for if you're looking like, okay, well, I don't know
Drama.
what your child is. Drama. Yes. Yeah. Always want some attention. I always want this and this. So that's how that shows up. Your inner child.
And there's some personality tests and things you can go through where they ask you series of questions on what type of trauma you have actually experienced that can help you kind of, if you're just getting into this type of work, that will help you kind of understand where you are. And then you can Google or research, read books, whatever the case may be, to help you really truly grasp and understand what is this. Like me, I feel like that orphan child is deep rooted, because a lot of times the orphan child is a child that goes without a lot of, like, they're really loners, they're by themselves, they're the child that is extremely like the black sheep of the family. They're so different, but I think the big takeaway from that is they yearn for family in a tribe, but they just don't trust enough to get to there, to allow somebody that close to them. And when things first hit and it's like, oh, I see trouble, I sense, danger, I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't stick around very long, you move around really quickly, fast, and it's because of that abandonment issues that you may have that creates that orphan child. And that's just my way of like kind of helping people navigate what that might look like in their life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because our past is a direct reflection of our present. You guys, you got to realize that. Yes, we're going to always dig back into the past because we have to figure out what's going on now. Why do we act like this? Why do we do this? Why do we say the things that we do? It is a direct reflection of our past. So yes, dig up your past, make peace with your past so your present can be beautiful. All right. So inner child play and activities, how are we healing this inner child? How are we integrating with this inner child? I know for me, as a child, I would shut down, even as an adult. Like if you were, with some of my partners, we maybe got into a heated argument or whatever. I just shut down. I stopped talking. I become mute. I became mute. And I know I used to do that as a child too. So what I do now as an adult, I speak up. I say what I need to say. And whether I have to go back and apologize for the way I said something, I can do that. I'm woman enough to say, I'm sorry. But I no longer am that mute little passion anymore. I speak up and get it off my chest on what I need to say. I don't hold things in. So that is my way of integrating with my inner child. I loved to journal. I was that little girl with journals. I kept up with my journal. I used to write. I still have many of them. I used to write poems when I was a little girl. I used to just write. So I do that now as an adult. As I always mention, journal is therapy. I journal to play with my inner child. I color. I do a lot of arts and crafts here at the house with my children. Playing outside is good for integrating with the inner child. What else, Diana? What do you do?
I do a lot of things. This is probably one of my favorite things to do. is the inner child. And I think that's why it connects so well with young folks. And it's because I like this part. The greatest part about doing inner child healing work is you get to reparent who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really critical point, is the things that you lack, the things that you did not have, the things that broke you, are you get to fix those by doing the exact opposite of what happened to you to
Love
take
that.
care of you. So
Mhm.
I do a lot of activities with my children. Like that's probably the only time I really get out and about is when I'm doing those type of activities. So I'm very like and I think the very first time I could really remember like really entertaining that idea of like fun, I remember going to see the movie. It was my cousin's birthday and we went to see Lion King. And I think it's the very first movie I ever can remember actually going to see in the movie theater. And I'm a movie fanatic. I had to go and tap back into that part, and I realized where I got that from. Same thing with plays. Me and the kids go to children's plays, and I go to the Penumbrum. I go to the Guthrie's Theater. I'm always somewhere watching a play. And it's because when I was younger, I remember going to see a Shakespeare play and I fell in love with it. And ever since then, I've always wanted to introduce my kids to those things. And sometimes it looked like, I can't go necessarily by myself because I look like a pervert or something. So I always got to bring my kids. And it's to the point where they like, I don't want to go to another movie. I don't want to go to the arcade. I don't want to do these things. But because of their lifestyle, I'm not saying that my kids have never experienced trauma because that's a lie. I mean, they were born in it. But I do believe that they have had so many good experiences that they don't know how to see what I'm doing. I just make them kind of go along with it because I want them to have those memories. I want them to create those things. And at the same time, I'm recreating them for myself, right? I'm healing my inner child by doing the exact same thing. Is doing all the things I wish somebody would have done. So when we go skating together. I don't drop my kids off to no skating. I actually don't drop my kids off nowhere. We do everything
Ooh,
together.
sorry to cut you off. What do you think about this though? How does that play with these parents where like they're kind of pushing their children into doing the things that they wish they would have did or that they didn't finish? Does that fall in lines with that, or is that different?
Well, I think that the only way you get the child to understand themselves is to introduce them to things. And as much as they don't want to do it, they don't know they don't want to do it. They don't know what they want to do until they try. I remember like me and Jamin used to go, my 16-year-old, we used to go to when he was younger, we used to go to a lot of different plays, and it would just be me and him. Because my oldest child at the time, we have been to so many, he'd be like, I don't want to go see that one, or I don't want to do that one. But that I can notice that that's how me and my 16-year-old at the time, he was probably closer to like 10 and 11, he would really, really be like, yeah, I'll go. Because that was what he liked. But in order for him to know he liked it, I had to introduce it to him. Now, what I don't do is if they say they don't want to go, I don't force them to go. Okay. But the first time, I think it is about forcing them to go because they never know what they're going to get from it. Naila's not really big. My daughter's not really big into sports, but she's going to play them. And after she plays them, she says she never want to play them again. Then that's on her. Okay. But we have to be able to create a way for our kids to truly navigate who they are and learn themselves. And if you're not putting enough work into helping them learn themselves, then somebody else will teach them about themselves, and that is dangerous.
That is very dangerous.
I would say that as long as once you introduce it to them and they say it's just something I don't want to do, then it's something I don't want to do. I mean, football, everybody know I didn't boxing. Football was and hockey. I just was like, no. And my son is in love with it. So who am I to keep him from it? I have no clue half the time what's going on in football, but I show up to his games. I stand by the student success team because they be out there, the ones that's out there rooting for the kid. They have like a whole like club for the high schoolers that's rooting on their team. And when I go over there with them, because at least I know that they rooting for the right team. Okay. But it's so real, right? As much as I don't like football, it's his thing, and I have to show up for it. So I'm being forced at the same time to do things outside my comfort zone. but who is to benefit? It's the benefit. I hope everybody that's
Yeah.
that's engaging in the sport with him.
Hmm.
So I try not to like let my personal opinion uh, affect how he sees himself in that game. So I think it's a little bit of both, and I think anything can be toxic. And you just got to be able to listen. I think a lot of kids, the number one thing about inner child that I can say is not often are children actually being able to vocalize what they like and don't like. They're not often being heard because they're not actually being told to talk.
Man,
uh,
I just heard this the other day.
yeah.
In the Black community, this person said in the Black community, the children are seen but not heard. They
Yeah.
often told to stop talking back when they got to voice their opinion about something or things like that. So that's a good valid point. I like that.
And imagine somebody telling you uh, to be seen, not heard, and at the same time do as I do and not do as I say and not as I do. You're
Man.
sending out some and even go back into what you were just saying when we were talking about when the inner child is actually formed. Imagine never having a voice, and then you go out into this big old world that is full of danger, and you have no skills. You don't know how to speak up for yourself. You're looking for somebody else to give you the answers. You're looking for somebody else to live your life for you because you have never learned how to live your life.
Ooh, I see
So
that
I
every
think
day.
that is where things can get very dangerous, and a lot of people have to heal from that part.
Man,
When
it's
do you
hard.
take up for yourself? When do you stop making excuses? Yes, bad things happen to you. What are you doing now?
Exactly.
What is the work? And even if the work for right now is I need to be by myself, I don't need to be connecting with people I know who have hurt me, even though I haven't been able to necessarily accept it or to necessarily let it go. At least I'm going to acknowledge that it happened and separate myself until I'm able to really understand what is next for me.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that is, and I've always been big on having open conversations. Sometimes I think my kids are disrespectful, but also what other time would they ever find the skills to learn how to properly communicate? They're
Hmm.
going to be disrespectful because kids often say what is come right first thing come out your mind is,
Hmm.
oh, I'm gonna say it. And a lot of kids get in trouble for that, and that's what makes them shut down. I believe that's where introvert come from, is being shut down, not
Hmm.
being open, not being allowed to find who you are in your authentic self. Somebody else is creating that for you, and then when you become an adult, you have no. There are a lot of people out in this world right now who is waiting for somebody else to live their life for them, so that if something go wrong, I can blame you for it.
Yes. Oh, I've seen that. Oh my goodness. Woo.
So
That's a
it's like, what do you do with that? And a lot of times, what you do with that is you start to heal these parts of you.
exactly. Exactly.
Uh, you want me to talk about
Uh,
this one?
sure.
Okay. I think that what I like about this slide personally is the idea of who are you? Beyond what somebody else's expectations of you were, beyond what
Mm.
somebody else did to you, like who are you? And if you don't know exactly who you are, let's think about who do you want to be and how do you get there? And
Journal
sometimes
entry.
journal entry,
Journal entry. Who are
child
who
play.
am Yep.
Yep, child play is another big one. Going to be literally just jumping in the water. Like I love to swim. And the reason I like to swim is because I like to, and I play games and I do all kind of things. That's the good thing about having kids, is that at the same time I get to reparent myself, and at the same time I can see how different that my childhood and my kids' childhood was, and I realized the importance of all the things that I'm doing when it comes to healing myself. And
Yeah.
I can say that this quote I really really like. It says the cry we hear from deep in our hearts come from the wounded child within. And that's usually where your behaviors come from.
Mhm.
Regardless of what, when somebody yell at you, you might shut down. When somebody, you don't get your way, you might not think they're your friends. If people are, sometimes what we do is we also create narratives for other people. We'll sit and not tell our friends the truth because we don't want somebody to tell us the truth.
Mhm.
So we'll project those things onto somebody else and be like, well, why would you let somebody do that if you know they're not supposed to do that? And a lot of times it's because they don't want to be called out. So they show up in friendships the way that they want people to show up for themselves. And it's
Mhm.
not always healthy.
Yep.
We can never lose our inner child, but we can recreate and heal our inner child. And
Yeah.
that is the whole purpose of
Yeah.
anything, is to heal what is broken. And the last one, the inner child is a manifestation of our traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And not all, and I think this the part of trauma that out of all the research books and just things I've done for myself, I think that not all, you don't have to always consider your trauma as bad, even though they did a lot of damage to you. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes what it did was build character. Sometimes what it did is made you aware of other surroundings. You know, that ability to, like, I know my kids don't have enough skills or enough interactions with other folks that's going to make them that's going to put them in danger in a big world, right? So being able to read a room, sometimes being able to read a room comes from those things that you had to endure. You like, I've seen this before, time for me to go.
Okay.
And those are critical things that, you know, I think of when I see that quote, is that we manifest our traumas. And yes, and most times, most people, a good majority of people are manifesting their traumas in a negative way. But
Mhm.
you also can take that trauma and manifest it into being something so much greater than you could ever imagine to be.
So beautiful when you do the work.
Yeah,
Nobody wants to do the work. Why is that?
because it's painful.
It is painful. It
It's
hurts so
painful, and
bad.
it's accountability and responsibility are probably the two hardest things people will ever have to do.
Man.
And that would mean they would have to be self-aware of who they are. They would have to be comfortable with their vulnerabilities. In order to be comfortable with your vulnerabilities, you have to reflect. And a lot of people are scared to see who they truly are. So they would rather mask it than to ever show their true face.
Mm-hmm. That is that. That's it right there. I have nothing. Drop the bombs right there. Nobody wants to do that.
It is painful. It's probably one of the, and the more you got to work through, the more pain you have to endure.
Mhm.
Um,
Speaking of,
yeah.
a couple of books you guys like let's go back to that here when we spoke about journaling, right? So journaling, this question right here, grab your pen and piece of paper right now and do this as a journaling activity tonight. Who am I? And just write, list who you are, truly who you are, not mommy you, not wife you, not girlfriend you, whoever. Who are you? Ask yourself that question and just free write and see what comes up, so you can show up as that person every day. And then me and Dayana, we love to read. We read books together. We talk about it. We do activities from these books together. We do everything together, right? And I think too, that's another piece in this part. When you're healing, get a person that you trust and love that you can do this work with. You don't know who that person may be sometime. But one of our favorite books is The Body Keeps the Score.
And that's Pasha's favorite book.
Book.
I once was my favorite book until I realized that the book misses a lot of components of how generational trauma happens for Black folks. So the book that I would recommend, if you read The Body Keeps the Score, or if you haven't read The Body Keeps the Score, or if you don't want to be like me, one of those people who just read what somebody else has said is popular, a good book to read is, and I would say read both of them, is Waking the Tiger and then In My Grandmother's Hands.
Yes.
Waking the Tiger is the mentor for Rasma, who is actually an author in Minnesota, and it's My Grandmother's Hands, which really, really does. It's like taking something clinical, which is Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine, and then putting it in terms for people of color, people who are descendants of slaves, people who have deep rooted trauma that goes back to centuries. I would suggest that you read Wake in the Tiger and my grandmother's hands. One is going to give you a clinical overview of what is happening to the body, because it's all about somatic. What the body keeps a score. Wake in the Tiger and my grandmother's hands really is somatic therapy. Is how trauma lives in your body. Where can you feel your trauma living? Most people would probably say, if they actually listen to their body, they would say the gut. It's probably one of the biggest ones, is the gut. And that's usually around sex trauma. That's around physical trauma. So if you've been beating, like if you got a severe beatings when you were a kid, when you had horrific sexual type traumas, it really shows up mostly in the gut. And then you have some other options of like being able to feel, like my knees are probably one of the biggest places where I know when I have really heightened anxiety, I feel it in my knees. And then sometimes I get headaches when I'm depressed. I'll overeat when I'm depressed. So there's other ways that your body will tell you how it's keeping the score, as you know, Pasha's favorite book is The Body Keeps Score. But The Wake in the Tiger and in my grandmother's hands are all around somatic, which that is how trauma works. Trauma lives in the body. It is why people are sick. It's why people probably, if you have anything going on in your life, whether it's high blood pressure, diabetes, if you got lupus, if you got cancers, it's probably because you are traumatized. And I've diagnosed you.
Yep.
Now I got to figure out how to
that is true. All of our organs are connected to emotions. So that is very true. Trauma lives in the body. When you got a chronic disorder or disease, you have trauma somewhere. You need to address that, right? Another one of my favorite books is The Four Agreements. I even took it a step further. I don't have a copy. I have it online. The fifth agreement, the 5 agreements. Check out those books when you're doing this work. It's going to help. All those books that we had listed, YouTube videos.
I love the 4 agreements too. Now that we can agree with that one. What I think will be really good about the 4 agreements when it comes to healing the inner child is you get to ignore all the negativity that someone has put in your mind to make you believe you're not worthy, you're not lovable, you're not strong, you're somebody's play toy, you're not. You know, all these things that people are probably put in your mind. And if you was to actually take the time and figure out who said it and when you first heard it, you would probably be shocked that it's probably somebody that didn't have no power to ever allow you to believe something that low about yourself. Exactly. And that's what I like about the 4 agreements, because it really helps you really clear your mind so that you can start reinforcing some of those affirmations and positive thoughts into your body.
Yes, I love this book.
Yeah,
I read it a couple times a year. This is one, like, just get it and have it on your bookshelf, and so you can reference back.
And I feel the same way about the Bell Hooks, All About Love. I think that one thing I think that if anybody can start anywhere is, what is love? And I went searching for an answer. No one had ever really taught me what love was. And, you know, rest in peace to my Bell Hooks, because I love her. But she really, really tells you that love and abuse does not coexist. It cannot coexist. So when we're taught like, oh, they love you, they just don't know how to show you, it's a lie. It's not true.
Who told you
they don't know how to love you. They don't know how to love you because they don't know how to love.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with anything other than they don't know how.
Love does not hurt. I know a lot of women got that tattooed on them. It does not hurt. Let it go. Let that go. Who told you that?
What love can do is create grief, and that's a difference between hurt and grief. People die. People get hurt. Things happen in life. People lose limbs. People lose babies that they love with a man, and it breaks their heart. You know, things happen. There's a difference between pain, and there's a difference between pain and grief. So please be able to know that love do come with grief sometimes. but it shouldn't be painful. And it damn
Yeah.
sure shouldn't be abusive.
Mhm. That is
And the gifts of
right.
imperfection, you gotta read that. Oh, that's because in order for you to do any of this work, you gotta be vulnerable. You gotta be comfortable with being vulnerable. I think that's almost like a toxic trait for me, is how comfortable I am with my vulnerability. I
Mhm.
tell anybody what happened to me. I don't think I should do that just because I have logic and reasoning. So I have to stop myself sometimes. But I truly do believe that if you can find comfortability in your vulnerability, the rest of the work, it's going to be painful. It's going to hurt. It's going to be sometimes feel like you want to give up, but it's worth it when you're comfortable with your vulnerability. It
Mhm.
becomes, it eases it basically.
Yes. Yes.
And then reality slap. Reality slap is just a reality slap. Reality is somebody hurt you. Reality is you're hurting. Reality is you broke it. But the reality is you still are obligated to fix it.
Yep.
Somebody broke you, but you got to fix it. That's
Exactly.
life.
Exactly. All right. Exactly. So yes, guys, please do the work, do the research, do
Mhm.
check out these books that we just put up there. YouTube some things. Connect with me. Connect with Dayana too. She's a great resource. I'm gonna put out her Facebook, and you can connect with her too. Like, we are here to help. Like, don't ever think you're gonna do this work by yourself. I mean, some stuff I like to do in seclusion, but I love the fact that I was able to open up to Dayana, and she was able to open up to me, and we go at it together. Find somebody like that, and it may be somebody like, I don't know, somebody you don't even know. So moving forward, so for the next topic though, the big three while you're doing your healing journey is going to be combating the shadow, the ego, and doing inner child. I think those are the top three um, topics that you should be diving into right now. Would you
If we
agree?
go back to that slide, I can explain what it was saying. The slide where it talks about the shadow, the ego, and the can we make that where it's actually larger? So the inner child, the shadow, and the ego. The way that I describe it is pretty much the best way and the most simple way I can define it. So these are my own words. The inner child is emotion. It is where your emotions lie. It's your experiences that you have experienced and the patterns that's created from all those things that you have had in your childhood. That is your inner child. It's everything you've went through. It's the good, the bad, the ugly. It's all the above.
Yeah.
The shadow self, which a lot of times people ask, do you believe that the inner child and the shadow is that the same thing?
No.
I don't think it's the same thing,
Two
because
separate.
my shadow self is all the traumas of my inner child that I allowed myself to harm me with.
Mhm.
It's the way that I manifest negatively manifest the traumas that I had from my childhood.
Mhm.
It's how I interacted with relationships. It's how I interacted with parenting. It's how I interacted with. It's probably why I do so well with kids who are extremely traumatized.
Mhm.
It's because, and people be like, well, how do you know what's going on? It's because when you harvest that type of trauma in your body and it's negatively affecting you, 9 out of 10, you are a fucked up individual in your adulthood, and it's
Mhm.
just the truth. And there ain't no professional way of saying how bad that is when you do not heal the inner child. It becomes your shadow self, but it's
Yep.
not the same.
Exactly.
So the
Nope.
shadow self is not visible. It's something you cannot see, just like the inner child is invisible. But a lot of times we remember a lot more about our childhood than we think about how we have harmed other people. And
Mhm.
that's basically what the shadow self is. The things that you've hid, the things that you don't want people to see. It's the someone maybe you like to paint and somebody told you your painting was ugly and you stopped.
Mhm.
And it's the things that you just don't want to practice no more because somebody else told you something.
Yeah.
So the shadow self is how you manifest your inner child traumas, and
Yeah.
then the ego.
Ooh. Woo.
We all are. Most of us
There you
probably
go.
work in our ego. It's probably
Yeah.
where we are. It's
Yep.
probably where we are because it's safe,
Yeah.
and it's technically like I describe the inner child as a sense of self and identity. Is the ego is the actual like peacemaker between your inner child and your shadow, which
Mm-hmm.
makes it your ego because you're confident.
Mm.
Even if it's bad, even if it's negative, even if it's positive, it does not matter. Your ego most likely is fighting between who you were and who you want to be. And
Yes.
it's the confidence. It's like, oh, I know I'm good at, like, if you're good at football, or if you're good at boxing, if you're good at drawing, you will draw for somebody. If you like somebody, instead of being vulnerable, you'll do something that you're confident in because you know it's automatically what it's going to give you. And a lot of people, that's where it is, that attention seeking. People will do it over and over and over again because they're looking for that validation, when the validation really is in your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Yeah,
should probably go back and do that work.
exactly. So yes, you guys, dive in on these topics. The inner child, what we're talking about today, shadow work, what we worked on last week, and then the ego, right? Those are the top
Mhm.
three. See where you fall in, where you need to pick up the slack a little bit. Okay. Um, some crystals that I think are very powerful and helpful while you're doing this kind of work is going to be Amazonite, my little
Mhm.
Amazonite, lepidolite, rose quartz. Rose quartz is going to be self love, full of love, peaceful, bringing that love back into the center space. I love this spear as well. And then Selenite or Satin Spire. It's going to be a great piece to have. This is going to cleanse that aura, refresh, keep it calm, keep the environment peaceful while you're doing this kind of work. And you can find all of these crystals on withlovecrystals.com. Um,
And I can honestly say, if no one, I'm not an expert on crystals. I go to her everything when it comes to herbs or crystals. That's where her expertise lie. But I think that if you ever want to start with some crystals, starting with uh, clear court,
yeah.
rose court is probably your it's probably the best way to start, because
Mm-hmm.
they're so versatile and
Yeah.
universal.
Yep, they are.
Hmm.
Clear quartz is going to be the universal master healer, is what I like to call it, and the rose quartz is going to bring in that love, bring in all kind of love, self love, romantic love, any kind of love you need. Okay, and get all those crystals. Go over to withlovecrystals.com and check out all the crystals, all the herbs. We have bulk herbs, herbal blends, anything. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love to chit chat and converse with people and help you and get you where you need to go. Again, Diana, thank you so much for joining me today
Anytime.
on this live. It's been amazing as always. I know we talk all the time, but I love to see us in action. I love it. Meeting you. When did we meet? What year was that?
2017.
2017. This Diana brought out a different side of passion. She says the things that I wish I could say sometimes. So I love to be in her presence. I love to have her around, and we chit chat and we work together all the time in many ways. So thank you again for joining me and tackling this hard subject with me today, because I'm like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And I love the examples you put out. Always, you always put it in a different perspective for me, and so I hope my viewers can take that too.
Mhm.
Um, thank you so much. I see you. I see you, Antoine. I love you too. Oh, Kat, I love you so much, and I am just so happy for you. I love that text message I received from you today. I am excited for you. I am excited for you to start this journey. I hope I gave you some tips today, and go back and watch on my YouTube channel the other videos like I told you to. And I'm going to send over some books to you. You go, girl. That right there. That was accountability right there. taking the action to say, look, I no longer want to live my life the way I have been living it. And I'm ready to change. I'm ready
Yeah.
to accept what I've been doing, play the parts, all that good stuff. You go, girl. You go, girl.
And I think that is where it really starts, is acknowledging. It's called self-aware. And if you can be self-aware, you will find self-accountability. You will
Man,
be able to do self-reflecting almost immediately. As soon as you do something, as soon as I do something I know I ain't supposed to do, I'm like, I wasn't supposed to do that.
Yes.
I wasn't supposed to do that. And
Yeah.
I still do that because I've always operated in more of my toxicity than I've ever operated in my positivity. Even though I've always felt like I've been positive, I know I've not always been, because that's not even possible. And I catch myself more now because I have so much, I have the ability to really reflect and the ability to be aware of myself. I know when things I'm not supposed to be doing, I can see it right off the bat, and I'll be like, ooh, I wasn't supposed to do that. And what I had to learn is to apologize.
Yeah. That was big for me.
Yeah. Because I ain't never been no apologizer. Like, look, I did it. Live with it or don't.
Okay. That was me. I would never, literally, like, within the last 2 years, I have learned to apologize, y'all. Listen, what I said is what I said. What I did is what I did. I meant it at the time. And that's just what it is.
Just to find out we didn't mean it. It wasn't even for you. We projected it.
Exactly.
So, and you got to figure out why you're doing those things, because you harm a lot of relationships. You harm mostly yourself when you do not take those accountability, when you do not take accountability, when you're not responsible for your actions, when you're not responsible for your behaviors, when you're not responsible for the things you did or did not do. Man. You have to be, because guess what? Sometimes I think this is where I can actually end it, is when we do not do the inner work. That means whether you're working on your inner child, your shadow self, or even your ego, because I hope you're doing some ego work too. The greatest part about all of that, I would hope, is that you're able to say, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And and make amends whenever you can.
I'm sorry is very powerful.
It really, and it's hard. It's one of the hardest things you probably will ever have to do, especially if you're not used to, especially if no one has ever done it for you.
Yeah. Ooh.
It's hard to apologize to somebody when people have hurt you, broken you, did evil things to you, and you will never get that back. But you still got to do it because, hey, when you know better, you got to do better.
Exactly. When you know better, I hope you do better. That's my saying.
Yes.
A lot of people don't do better. But I do hope that you do better when you know better.
And I think to even say hope and to even do that is to put in the universe that they might not. I say you will. If that's what you will, then that's what you do. If you know better, you do better. And sometimes even when we know better, we just don't know enough to make us do better. So sometimes that's telling you to dig deeper because it's something else left behind, and you need to go and either let that go, amend it, or forgive it.
Amend it or forgive it. Oof.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. Well, let's end it on that note, because that's super powerful. Thank you again so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your night.
Yes. And everyone, please like, subscribe, share this video, take notes on this video, and all that good stuff. I love you all.
And reach out to us if you need anything. That's what we're here for. We're not here to just feed you bullshit and tell you it's sugar. We're not doing that. In Pasha's world, sugar is bad for you, so we ain't even gonna sell you sugar. But we also not gonna sell you shit. Everyone have a good night. Thank you so much, Pasha.
Okay. Bye. I love you.
Bye.
Black girl magic, the face of a model.